The conference room was dead silent, but in my head, it was deafening. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them under the table, my nails digging into my palms. I could feel the cold sweat on the back of my neck. Just breathe. 10 feet in front of me, he was standing there. David, my boss, my mentor. He was animated. He was charming. He was pointing to my graphs. He was explaining my architecture. He was presenting Project Aperture. He'd even stolen the damn name. This was my baby, my masterpiece, the 18-hour days, the code I'd written until my vision blurred. This was supposed to be my promotion, my future. He clicked to the final slide, a projection of $50 million in new revenue. The CEO, seated right next to me, beamed. He clapped David on the shoulder. The room broke into applause, and then David looked at me, right at me. He didn't just smile. He smirked, a tiny, private, victorious little twist of the lips that said, "I won. What are you going to do about it?" 2 days later, a cold, automated HR email informed me my position was redundant. They thought I was broken. They thought I was just some quiet coder they could steamroll, some kid who didn't know her place. They had no idea. I wasn't just broken. I was being forged. If you have ever felt underestimated, betrayed, or looked down on by someone who had power over you, you're going to want to stick around for this one. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about justice. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and get comfortable, because this one is deeply satisfying. It's funny. The betrayal, it never comes from your enemies. When I first joined the company, fresh out of college, David was the guy everyone wanted to work for. He was the VP of innovation. He was charismatic. He remembered everyone's name. He had this way of looking at you when you spoke, like you were the only person in the world. I was assigned to his division, and honestly, I was starstruck. He took me under his wing. "You've got the spark, kid," he'd say, ruffling my hair. "You're going places." He became more than a boss. He was a mentor. We'd grab beers after work, map out ideas on napkins. He felt like, I don't know, like the supportive older brother I'd never had, and I trusted him, implicitly. So when I had my eureka moment, he was the first person I told. I'd been working on a side project, a new way to handle massive data queries. It was elegant. It was revolutionary. It would change everything for our clients. I called it Project Aperture because it opened a window to a new way of thinking. For 6 months, I lived inside that code. I skipped meals. I missed parties. I poured every ounce of my soul into it, and every step of the way, I showed him. "This is brilliant, kid," he'd say, his eyes wide. "Keep going. This is your ticket to the top." He asked for my private GitHub repository access to help guide me. He asked for my research, my data, my projections. I gave him everything. I was so proud. I was so naive. Then came the big presentation, the one for the CEO and the board. David told me it was a high-level strategic meeting and that I should sit this one out. "It's all boring corporate politics," he said. "You just focus on the code. I'll handle the suits." But my cubicle was right outside the main conference room. And when the meeting started, I heard my project's name. I snuck to the back door, peered through the little glass window, and that's when my world fell apart. My slides, my data, my name, nowhere to be seen. It was all David's new initiative. After the meeting, after the smirk, I confronted him. I was shaking, my voice barely a whisper. "David, that was my project. You said..." He dropped the smile. His face went cold. It was like a mask falling off. "Look," he said, adjusting his stupidly expensive cuffs. "You did some great foundational work. I'll be sure to give you a special thanks in the company newsletter." Foundational work? "David, I built it!" And then he delivered the line that would echo in my head for the next year. He leaned in, his voice low and dripping with condescension. "You built a concept. You don't have the vision to take it to the finish line. You're a great little coder, but you're not a killer. "This is the big leagues, kid. Try to keep up." He patted me on the shoulder, patted me, and walked away, leaving me standing there, hollowed out. 2 days later, the HR email. Position eliminated due to restructuring. My security badge was deactivated mid-swipe. A guard, a guy I'd had coffee with just last week, wordlessly watched me pack my desk plant and a framed photo into a cardboard box. I was walked out. In the middle of the afternoon, in front of everyone. That night, I wasn't just unemployed. I was erased. The weeks that followed were dark. I mean dark. I'd sit on my couch, the curtains drawn, staring at a blank TV screen. I stopped answering my phone. I stopped coding. What was the point? He wasn't just a boss who stole an idea. He was my mentor. He had taken my passion, my trust, and broken them. He had gaslit me so completely that I started to believe him. Maybe I am just a kid. Maybe I don't have the vision. Maybe I really am useless. The financial panic set in. My savings started to bleed out. One rent payment, one electric bill at a time. I went from ordering takeout to rice and beans, then just rice, and all the while, he was rising. He was on the cover of Tech Innovator magazine. "The man reinventing data," the headline screamed. He was the keynote speaker at industry events. He was winning awards. For my work, I tried to get another job, but the industry is small. I'd get to a final round interview and then silence. I found out later, through a friend, that David was poisoning the well. When prospective employers called him for a reference, he'd sigh and say, "Look, she's emotional, talented, but difficult. Couldn't really handle the pressure. A shame." He didn't just steal my project. He was salting the earth so nothing could ever grow for me again. He thought I was broken. He thought I was done. I was lying on my floor, 3 months into my broken period, watching a live stream. It was him again. He was on some panel, taking questions. A young developer in the audience asked him a highly technical question about Aperture's core scaling mechanism. And David fumbled. He gave a non-answer, a string of buzzwords. Synergy, proactive, next-gen architecture. He didn't know. He didn't understand the code. He was a car thief who knew how to drive, but had no idea how the engine actually worked. And that's when it hit me. A feeling that wasn't despair. It wasn't sadness. It was ice. A cold, sharp, beautiful clarity. He's a fraud. He's a charismatic shell. He's a parakeet who can repeat the words he's heard, but he has no idea what they mean. And in that same instant, I remembered something else. The flaw. Right before I was fired, I had found a flaw. A deep critical flaw in Aperture's kernel, a scaling issue. It wouldn't show up in a demo. It wouldn't show up with 1 or 2 clients. But under massive enterprise-level load, the kind he was actively selling to the biggest banks and insurance companies in the world, the whole thing wouldn't just crash. It would corrupt. It would silently shred data, bit by bit, like a digital cancer. I hadn't documented it yet. I hadn't told David. I was planning to fix it Monday. The Monday I was fired, the anger. It turned from a hot, messy fire into a cold, blue flame. This wasn't about getting my job back. This wasn't about clearing my name. This was about deconstruction. I got up from the floor. I opened my laptop. The battery was dead. I plugged it in. And as it booted up, I booted up. The broken girl was gone. I didn't go to the press. I didn't go to the CEO. They were all enchanted by him. They'd never believe emotional, difficult me over the man reinventing data. No, you don't tell the king he's a fraud. You build a better kingdom. And you let the world watch his castle crumble into the sea. For the next 6 months, I disappeared. I lived on caffeine and adrenaline. I used the last of my savings to rent a tiny server rack in a co-location facility. I wasn't fixing Aperture. I was building its killer. I started with a blank slate. I took the concept of Aperture, the concept he'd never truly understood, and I rebuilt it from the ground up. I fixed the flaw. I made it 10x faster. I made it 100x more secure. I made it perfect. I called it Project Nemesis. When it was 80% complete, I put on my one good suit, walked into the offices of David's #1 competitor, a smaller, hungrier company, and I asked for a meeting with their CEO. I got 10 minutes. I walked into her conference room. "You're losing," I said. "David's Aperture is eating your lunch, and I'm the person who can tell you why." She was skeptical. "You're the kid he fired. I'm the architect he stole from." I opened my laptop. I didn't show her Nemesis, not yet. I showed her Aperture. I pulled up the exact kernel code. "Here," I said, pointing, "is the time bomb. He's already sold it to 3 of the biggest banks in the country, and right about now, their data is starting to feel sick." I showed her a simulation, a live demo of the data corruption. Her face went pale. She wasn't looking at a bad piece of code. She was looking at the biggest class action lawsuit in tech history. "And here," I said, opening a new window, "is the cure." I showed her Nemesis. I didn't get 10 minutes. I got 4 hours. I walked out of that building not as an employee, but as a partner. They gave me a team. They gave me resources. They gave me one objective: get it ready. We went into stealth mode. We worked, we tested, we waited. We waited for the perfect moment. And David, arrogant, blissfully ignorant David, he handed it to us on a silver platter. His company announced InnovateCon, their biggest client conference of the year. The grand unveiling of Aperture 2.0, which I knew was just a coat of paint on my same flawed engine. David, of course, was the keynote speaker. This was the place, InnovateCon. The main hall was packed. Thousands of clients, executives, journalists. The air was electric. I was backstage, a guest pass hanging around my neck. My new CEO, the head of the rival company, had gotten me in. I could hear David on the main stage, his voice amplified, booming over the crowd. Project Aperture isn't just a product. It's the future. It's the partner you can trust. The applause was thunderous. My heart was trying to hammer its way out of my chest. My palms were slick. My new CEO leaned over. "You good?" I just nodded. I took a deep breath. "Breathe. Just breathe. He's all performance. You're all substance. Remember that. He built his house on your sand. Today, the tide comes in." David finished his keynote to a standing ovation. He was glowing, soaking it in. The lights dimmed. The host came back on stage. "Thank you, David. Incredible stuff. And now, folks, we have a surprise for you. A special presentation from a new partner we're very excited about. Please welcome, from Nemesis Systems." The host looked at the card, confused, as he hadn't been briefed. "Please welcome, the chief architect of Nemesis Systems." My name. I walked out from the wings. The spotlight hit me. I could see the entire audience, and I could see him. He was in the front row, still smiling from his ovation. He looked confused, then a flicker of recognition. That smugness was still there, but it was brittle. He looked at me like I was a ghost. I walked to the center of the stage. I didn't look at him again. I looked right into the camera. "Good morning," I said. My voice, thankfully, was steady. "We've all heard a lot about the future today, but the future has a problem." I clicked my remote. The Jumbotron, the one that just had David's face on it, was now filled with my code. With his code. "The future," I continued, "is built on a flawed foundation." A gasp rippled through the auditorium. This was not on the schedule. "I know this," I said, "because I wrote the original foundation." I heard another gasp. I could feel David's eyes burning into the side of my head. I didn't flinch. "And this?" I clicked again. A single line of code was highlighted in bright red. "Is the time bomb. This is a catastrophic data corruption flaw. Not if, when. I ran the simulation. My simulation. Live on the 50-foot screen." I showed them what happens when Aperture tries to handle the exact data load that David had just promised them it could. the screen filled with red. Error logs, corrupted files. I showed them in real time, their precious data. Their bank records, their client lists, their medical files, turning to garbage. The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. A VP from a major bank in the front row was white as a sheet. I could see a woman 2 rows back already on her phone, her face a mask of horror. For any current Aperture client, I said, letting the words hang in the air. Your data isn't just at risk, it's already compromised. And now, I looked at David. He was gone. The charisma, the smirk, the power. It had all evaporated. He was just a hollow, pale man in an expensive suit. His mouth was slightly open. He looked broken. I locked eyes with him. Just for a second. I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I just looked at him. I just let him see me. Then I turned back to the audience. But we believe in solutions, not just problems. I clicked my remote. This is Project Nemesis. The screen changed. A new UI, clean, fast, powerful. It's what Aperture should have been. It's built from the ground up to be 100% secure. It's twice as fast, and as of right now, it is available. I saved the final dagger for last. And for any current Aperture client, we are offering a free, full, and secure data migration, effective immediately. Because frankly, you're going to need it. I didn't even have to say thank you. The room erupted. It wasn't applause. It was chaos. People were running for the exits. Not to leave, to make calls, to find my team, who were waiting in the lobby. Security was trying to calm people. Journalists were shoving microphones in my face. And David, I watched him. Amid all the chaos, he just sat there, frozen. The CEO who had clapped him on the back was now screaming in his face. I walked off the stage. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear, not from anger, from power, from release. It was done. I didn't just expose him. I didn't just get revenge. I made him, and my old company, completely and utterly irrelevant, in 10 minutes. In the end, David wasn't destroyed by some elaborate evil plan. He was destroyed by his own arrogance. He stole something he didn't understand, and that was the weapon I used against him. They say living well is the best revenge, but sometimes a little targeted professional deconstruction doesn't hurt either, and that is how you take back your power. If that story didn't make your heart pound, I don't know what will. Smash that like button if you love the payoff, and tell us in the comments. What's the most satisfying pro-revenge you've ever witnessed? And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this. See you in the next one.